Hello and welcome to Battle Report number 16. So, we're continuing my list development ready for the Scottish Championships, trying to work out how I'm going to jump up to 5,000 points from 4,500 as the normal points value for tournaments. So a couple of changes here and there. We'll have a look at the lists in a moment. But for this round, I'm playing against Beast Herds. And if you followed the Scottish Championships at all, then you might recognise the Beast Herds list because it was played by Lucky Sixes from Proxy Table Gaming. So lovely to play against him again. And I will link the battle report from his perspective on his channel on Proxy Table Gaming below. And you can check out that as well. So let's take a look at the lists. So, I'm still trying to get the Humility Hippogriff Duke to work, so I've got one of them in there with a Dusk Forged Shield, Uther's Conviction for a +1 Aegis against AP 6 or more. He's got a hand weapon enchanted with a Shield Breaker for +6 AP, and an Obsidian Rock for making him a little bit difficult to magic off. Then I've got a Duke as my general. He's on a Barded Warhorse with a shield. A Lance enchanted with the Divine Judgement for multiple wounds, D3 +1 on the charge. He's got Crusader's Salvation, giving him a 1-up rerollable armor save in total. He's got the Virtue of Audacity, which gives him rerolls to hit against large models, and rerolls to hit and to wound against models with Towering Presence. And then he's got the Questing Oath and Bastard Sword. I've got a Damsel on Barded Warhorse. She's a Wizard Master of Druidism, and she's got a Rod of Battle to give me a 5th spell, just to give me a little bit of more flexibility in the magic phase. I've got a Paladin on a Barded Warhorse with a shield. He's my Battle Standard Bearer. He's got a Lance enchanted with Wyrmwood Core for a Strength 5 breath weapon and flaming attacks, and he's got the Bastard Sword and Questing Oath as well. Then in my core, I've got 15 Knights Aspirant with Standard Bearer enchanted with the Banner of the Last Charge and a Musician. 2 lots of 6 Knights of the Realm with full command. A unit of 8 Knights of the Grail with full command and Stalker's Standard. A unit of 11 Knights of the Quest with full command and Stalker's Standard. I've got the Green Knight and 2 lots of Yeoman Outriders with shields and bows for chaff. So not many changes from my last list, I don't think. Mostly just changing around what I've got on my magic setup. I think I dropped one of the damsels because I had a Shamanism Adept, and I gave my Hippogriff their Shield Breaker weapon. But on a hand weapon, that's not true. You know, it's got questionable usability, really. So we'll see how that gets on. And let's take a look at Lucky Six's list. So he's playing Beast Herds, obviously. He's got a Soothsayer as his general. He's a Wizard Master of Evocation. He's wearing light armor enchanted with Destiny's Call for a 4-up, 4-up. And he's wearing Ranger's Boots, which gives him Strider and +2 Advance and +4 March, which is a funky magic item. Nice to see something a little bit more unusual. He's got a Centaur Chieftain as his Battle Standard Bearer. He's got a Greater Totem Bearer to give him some bound spells. Shield enchanted with the Willow's Ward. He's wearing heavy armour enchanted with the Alchemist's Alloy, and he's got a hand weapon enchanted with the Hawthorn Curse, so he's got the Bolt Thrower weapon enchantment, essentially. Then in core, he's got 2 lots of 3 Raiding Chariots, 2 lots of 15 Wild Horns with Throwing Weapons, Ambush, and Musicians. A unit of 12 Centaurs with Lances, full command with Banner of Speed, and a Totem Bearer. He's got the Blooded Horn, which is the +1 attack and +2 AP. A Razor Tusk Chariot to give everything a little bit of a boost on the charge. A unit of 10 ambushing Longhorns with Halberds. A unit of 5 Gargoyles, 2 Gortax, and 3 Beast Giants with Giant Clubs. So with the jump to 5,000 points, that means the 40% Terrors of the Wild. You can now take 2,000 points of monsters in a Beast Herds list. So spoilers for the event, but if you didn't see anything for it, but it meant that the, in particular, Beast Herds could take an awful lot of monsters. So that's what Lucky Sixes is trying here. No Minotaurs though, no horrible Minotaur Lord, but he has got a Bolt Thrower, which might be potentially very uncomfortable for my Knights. And Centaurs with Lances with a very, very long charge range with potentially the Blackwing Totem giving them an additional D3 +1 on the charge. Plus they've got the Banner of Speed, so they're advanced 9, so they're potentially outranging my Knights here. which isn't great, and they've got lots of attacks, and they're all very high strength with the lances, so a unit that I'll need to be wary of. So let's go through and have a look at the battle. So for spells, I've got the Rod of Battle, obviously. I've got Master of Earth, Entwining Roots, Summer's Growth, and Stone Skin on my Damsel. And for his spells, he's got Spectral Blades, Whispers of the Veil, Hasten the Hour, and Touch of the Reaper. So 2 snipe spells, and rerolls the Wound, and the -1 Resilience and Discipline. And then, of course, he's got the Blooded Horn Totem on his Centaurs, and the Totem Bearer on his Chieftain. So for this game we were playing round 4, I think, we were practicing. So Secure Target and Dawn Assault. So I took the top left and he had the bottom right. I placed my objective in the centre, just in front of the hill on the left. And with his ambushes coming on behind my lines to sit on the objective, of course they're scoring as long as they come in before turn 4, or before turn 5, sorry. You know, that's a very sensible place to put it. It means that I have to turn around if I want to challenge that objective with his ambushes coming on, which just makes it a little bit more awkward for me. So I've got my Questing Knights with my BSB and General on the left. I've got my Grails with the Damsel in next to them. Then a unit of Yeoman Outriders. The unit of 15 Aspirants with the Banner of the Last Charge. Another unit of Yeoman Outriders. Both of my small darts of Knights of the Realm. And my Humility Hippogriff on the right. Then left to right on his side, he's got a Sober Giant with his BSB behind, because of course the Giants pick between being... They've got Drunkard, so they pick at the beginning of the game whether they want to have Vanguard or Devastating Charge. He's got his BSB behind that Giant, a unit of Gargoyles, Raiding Chariots in front of them, then his Soothsayer General, his Razor Tusk Chariot, the Gortak just off the front of that hill, his big unit of Centaurs, another Sober Giant, the Centaurs have started drunk there, the other unit of Raising Chariots, and then on the far flank another Sober Giant and his Gortak. So all 3 of the Giants have light troops and Vanguard. So just as we deployed this, I made a note to myself and I said to Lucky Sixes, I need to make sure that I don't let your Giants get behind me, because it's going to be a pain turning around to try and deal with them. Because of course they've got a 12-inch Vanguard and then a 14-inch move. So a 26-inch first turn move. And I think he dropped for first, so he was almost certainly taking the first turn. So we go to post Vanguard. So this is a little bit into his first turn. That Giant on the right has moved up there. And that gives you a note into what's happened on the Beast Herd's first turn. I've let all 3 of his Giants get up behind my lines. So I moved my Yeoman with their Vanguard quite awkwardly, and it just gave gaps for the Giants to slip in, which was a massive pain in the arse. And I said to Lucky Sixes as much. I said, I can't believe I've let you done that, especially considering I just said that I couldn't let you do that. All 3 Giants are marked as drunk at the moment, and that's because at the time we thought that they had looted booze, but they have to buy the beer barrel upgrade to be able to switch halfway through the game. Instead they've got Giant clubs. So we switch that in a turn or so. The rest of his movement though, he moves his Gortak on the right up onto the hill, so he gets rerolls to charge against anything that moves out his way. Of course the Giants all move up behind my lines. His BSB on the left moves up just about in range of my Grails, I think, to try and take a shot there. And everything else, the Centaurs and the Chariots on the left and the Gortak all stay within 6 of the Razor Tusk Chariot to try and get +1 on their charge for next turn if they manage to get any charges off. And he pushes up a little bit more with the Chariots on the right. So post magic and shooting for the beasts on turn 1. He magics off a couple of my Yeoman Riders on the unit in front of the Chariots. Gets off both Touch the Reaper and Hasten the Hour and kills a couple of them, but I pass my panic with the Humility Hippogriff on the right there. And I think everything else of note is dispelled, and the Hawthorn Curse thankfully misses. So we go to Equitaine turn 1. So I declare a couple of charges. First of all, the Realm Knights on the right can see round the Yeoman Outriders now that a couple of them have been killed. So they declare a charge into the Raiding Chariots, which they flee from. They don't want to get involved with that on the, raiding chariots are great on the charge, but they're not going to want to take even a small unit of lances to the face. So they flee from there. I redirect into the Gortak, but thankfully fail. I don't think that would have been a good combat for me. Thankfully it was quite long enough for me to not get the roll I needed. And on the other flank, I think I had a 20 into the raiding chariots on the other side. So double 6 needing rerolls. He's happy to watch me fail that, which I do. And I roll forward a few inches. And we go to my moves. So to try and deal with the giant on the left, my general moves out of his questing knight unit. Of course, he's kitted out to destroy monsters. So if he manages to get hold of that giant on the charge, he's going to blow up. He's going to explode the poor giant. So I move that to cover my left flank. On the right, I use my depleted unit of yeoman outriders to chaff up the giant there. And I move the Hippogriff to cover them and get out of line of sight of the Gortak. The leftmost unit of Realm Knights, of the 2 units of 6, just backs up a few inches. I assume that he's going to send his giant into the flank of the other unit and go through that unit instead, because it'll be a little bit more difficult for me to fight him off there. Of course, he's got light troops, so he won't be having a big flank, but at the very least, he'll only be attacked back by 2 knights. So I'm expecting him to go into that one, at which point I can probably countercharge with the unit that backed off. And I use the other unit of yeoman outriders just to stay back away from his magic and his shooting use for chaff later on. And I move up nice and close so I can shoot some bows into that giant there. So, post-magic. I get the Oaken thrown off. I get Stone Skin on the Yeoman Outriders in front of the Giant on the right, just to make them a little bit more difficult, potentially, for the Giant and the Gortak to kill them. If I get lucky, then they'll be tied there for a turn, which will be nice. I cast Master of Earth on the BSB and managed to do a wound to him. I also try Entwining Roots, because I didn't realise, neither of us realised during the game, that the minuses for shooting isn't going to affect the Hawthorn Curse because it ignores minus modifiers to hit. But he dispels that. And in shooting the yeoman in front of the giant in the centre, the unit of 5 shoots the giant and does a wound to him. So, Beast Herd's turn 2. So the Gortak on the right charges down off his hill into the side of the Stone Skin Yeoman Outriders. The Gortak in the centre behind the forest goes into my Realm Knights on the right. And what surprised me here was the Wounded Giant in the centre went into the front of my Realm Knight unit. So it means that anything that survives his attacks, I'll be able to attack back with the whole unit. And of course they're strength 4 and AP 1, so I ignore the 1 pip of armour that he does have, and I'm only wounding him on 5s. And I think I'm hitting him on 3s as long as I pass the fear test. And as he's light troops, I only need to keep 3 alive for a steadfast check. I'm going to have a banner. I was quite surprised that he didn't go into the flank of the other Realm Knights and try and take them off instead. But he goes into the front. So I wouldn't say that was a good combat for the Realm Knights, but certainly a better one for them than the flank of the other unit. So we forgot the ambushes and just brought them on at the end of the movement phase instead, so it didn't make an awful lot of difference. So the Gortak in the centre fails his charge into the Realm Knights. The Giant makes an auto charge into the Realm Knights there, and has some Wild Horns move on behind. And the Gortak comes down off of the hill and hits the side of the Yeoman Outriders, no problem. The Giant on the left, on the right even, moves up nice and close, gets behind my Realm Knights there to sandwich them in between him and the Gortak. The Giant on the left passes his march check and dances all the way around my Aspirant Knights to the other side to try and hide from my Audacity Duke. And again, he shuffles very cautiously with the rest of his army, his chariots and his centaurs, with his general and BSB. Not wanting to give me any particularly decent charges down off of my hill from there. And we go to post-magic. So he tries and fails with Touch the Reaper on my Grail Knights. He tries to get the Blackwing Totem off on his Centaurs, which I dispel. I didn't, I think it was only a 10-inch charge as it was, so I didn't want to give him an extra you know, D3+1 there. So try and dispel that. I don't think anything else really goes off. So we go to post-combat. This is before break tests. Well, that Gore-Tack on the right has polished off those Yeoman Outriders, even with their Resilience 6, so he's gone through them, reforms to face towards the centre. And the Giant in with my Realm Knights has only managed to kill the one Knight. I think he needed 4s and then 2s to wound me with his 6 attacks when he attacked me. So, not great from the Giant. And then with my 6 attacks back from 5 Knights and a Champion, I managed to do 2 wounds to him. So he's got a charge and a wound for 2, and I've done 2 wounds and a banner. So I win combat by 1. Which means he's testing on Discipline 7, which he fails. It panics the Wild Horns and the Giant. The Giant passes, but the Wild Horns fail and panic off the board. And then I pursue after the Giant, and I catch him. Which was, you know, a brutal turnaround on this flank. Of course, I've still got 2 Gore-Tacks and another Giant to deal with, but, you know, that's one of the scoring units for the secure target that I've just panicked off, so I've got the points from that. I've managed to run down a Giant, and I've only lost 1 Knight for it, which is, you know, great for me. Very unlucky for Lucky Sixes. He had a really tough time in that combat. So we go to Equitaine turn 2. I declare a whole load of charges. Both of those Realm Knights are going to go into the Gore-Tack in the centre. Of course, I'm Strength 6 on the charge, and he's only Resilience 6 with no save, so even with the Blooded Horn Totem on there, I'm confident that I'll be able to hit and kill him before he attacks. If I move the Aspirants with the Banner of the Last Charge out of the way, then I can charge my Audacity Duke into the side of that Giant and skewer him. So I go for an 11-inch charge into the flank of the Gore-Tack there. Of course, I get rerolls to charge. So post-charges, everything makes it in, which was very nice. So that's almost certainly a dead Gore-Tack there now. With 12 impact hits, I lost one of the Knights going through the woods in the Aspirants and another one in the Realm Knights. But that's an awful lot of very high strength attacks going into the Gore-Tack, which is nice. And of course that clears the way for my Audacity Duke to hit the Giant. Post moves, I move very aggressively with my BSB and Questing Knights down the left flank. I figure his impact hits only Strength 5 AP2, so they'll be wounding me on 2s, but then I get a 4+ save and a 5+ Aegis against it, and that's the equivalent of a somewhere between a 2-up and a 3-up armor save, so I was confident of that, and he's only going to be able to fit 3 chariots in on my front. And, you know, chariot impact hits can be very swingy. So if he rolls really well, then that could be really bad for the unit. But if he rolls about average or hopefully below average, then that's fine for that unit. And then with a Strength 5 breath weapon, and they've all got great weapons. The chariots are only light troops. So, you know, that's going to be a good combat as long as the impact hits aren't too bad. I move the Hippogriff Knight... the Hippogriff Duke, sorry, in from his flank. Again, he doesn't really have the weapons to deal with these monsters, and I was potentially the Giants he could have a go at, but I didn't want to get in with the Gore-Tack, so he's waiting for a decent moment to strike. I move the Yeoman Outriders from the centre to chaff up the Gore-Tack from getting into the combats in the centre. And the Grail Knights on their hill just shuffle about a bit. Again, they don't want to attempt a particularly long charge from the Centaurs, so they're waiting as well. So, post-magic, I try to get Summer's Growth on the unit in the centre, which Lucky Sixes dispels. Obviously, you know, it's the one you want to not be seeing with Equitaine growing back very expensive Knights all the time. So he dispels that, and I get Entwining Roots off on the BSB. Of course, that's not going to affect his shooting weapon, but it does mean that he's -2 to his offensive and defensive skills, so he's only offensive 3 now, I think, which is nice, which means he'll be hitting my Knights on 4s. And now we go to post-combat. So between the 11 Knights of the Realm attacks and 15 or 16 Knight Aspirant attacks, plus 12 impact hits, that's a very dead Gore-Tack. I think I managed to kill it before I rolled all of my attacks. I rolled very well on the impacts, but... you know, once you do a wound to it, I don't need, he doesn't get any armor saves or anything, so we go through that. I overrun with the leftmost unit of Realm Knights, which pins down the Centaurs. We're not going to fight that combat now, but it means that he's pinned in his combat phase, which is nice. Or for his charge phase, rather. So he won't be able to do any charges with that Centaur unit. And the Aspirants pivot to face the Giant behind them. And then my Audacity Duke at the top in fighting with that Giant shows what he can do, and goes straight through the Giant before he can strike. Rerolling to hit and to wound, and I was hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, with rerolls and then multiple wounds, d3+1, so, you know, make very short work of the Giant, and then he turns to face the Halberd Longhorns. So we go through to Beast Herds turn 3. So he declares a whole load of charges back at me. That Gortak is going into my Yeoman Outriders. The Giant is going into the front of my Aspirants. Both the Raiding Chariots and the Razor Tusk Chariot are going into my Questing Knights, and his BSB is going to go into the flank of my Realm Knights. So he's got looted booze, and I think this was the turn that he drank his used his looted booze and turned to drunk. So he's going to be Strength 8, AP 6 going in there, so that's going to be brutal, even with his reduced offensive and defensive weapon skill. So he'll either kill enough of me to break me, and then I'll flee, and those Centaurs can then pursue into the side of my Aspirants, which is very bad for me because I won't be steadfast while I'm sitting in the middle of the forest there. Or he's going to wipe out the Realm Knights, and he'll be able to overrun with the Centaur BSB. And that's a very short overrun again into the flank of my Aspirant Knights, which, you know, isn't as bad as the Centaurs going into the side of them, but still, you know, pretty bad news for me. So post charges, everything makes it in very comfortably. The Giant goes in, the Centaur goes in, the Chariots go into my units, and the Gortak's an auto charge as well. Oh, and I didn't have it noted, but the Longhorns charge my Audacity Duke as well. So he's only got strength 4 attacks, no rerolls or anything, so he's going to be a little bit pants and relying on his armor save up there. Post magic, he gets off the Blooded Horn totem on his Centaur BSB, so he's now AP 8 with 5 attacks, so really disgusting now. And, you know, with his general nearby and he's the BSB, he's going to be re-rolling to hit with Primal Instinct, so that's potentially going to be really very hideous. Post-combat, though, it all goes wrong for the beasts. So, first of all, on the left with the Chariots, we started off rolling 4d6 for the impact hits, and that rolled very high, and we got all the way through to the point where I'd rolled my saves and taken off a good 8 knights or something. Before I realised, hey, you know, there's only 3 Chariots in base contact that, you know, neither of us had realised. So we had to go back, and unfortunately for Lucky Sixes, the reroll of the impact hits was far lower, and then I rolled far better on my armour saves. So I only lost 2 knights, and then through the rest of his attacks, he only killed another 1. And then I had a Strength 5 breath weapon and 3 ranks of questing knights, so between the attacks back, I did a total of 8 wounds to the Raiding Chariots, which meant that between that and my static combat res, I've got 2 banners, 2 ranks. You know, he's only killed 3 and he's got a charge, so I automatically break them. I pursue after the Razor Tusk Chariot and catch it. The Raiding Chariot makes it away. But, you know, that now means that I'm free to charge either the flank of the Centaurs next turn or into his general. I can chase off the Chariot and cause some panic tests. You know, that's not good in that combat. In the Centaur Chariot, Centaur Realm Knight combat, though, with 5 attacks, rerolling to hit, wounding me on 2s, no armor saves for me, he does 0 wounds with his Centaur BSB. So he does pass his rerolls to hit, but he doesn't hit with any of the attacks, which is just horrible. And then between the 4 attacks from the Centaurs, because of course they can't fight back with more than 1 file, he only manages to kill 1 of my Realm Knights. My attacks back, I kill 1 of the Centaurs, and I manage to hold. So that means that now I've got the the Aspirant Knights fighting by themselves against the giant. So I do a couple of wounds to him, I think. I think I break it and then chase it off. I can't remember whether I run it down or not, but that giant's fleeing now, I believe. Or at the very least, he's stuck in combat with me with the griffin, the Hippogriff pointing at his arse. And in combat with the Longhorns and my Audacity Duke, I strike first, but between 4 strength 4 attacks, I don't manage to cause any wounds. He doesn't do anything to me because I've got a 3-up rerollable armor save on him against those attacks. I lose by 2 for a charge and rank. I pass my Discipline 7 check. And that's the end of Beast Herd's turn 3. So now looking into my turn 4, I've got a counter charge with my Hippogriff into the back of that giant. My spare unit of Realm Knights can go into the flank of his BSB. My Questing Knights and BSB can chase off the last remaining raiding chariot and go into its general, or I can go into the flank of the centaurs. I can move up very aggressively with my Grail Knights, or I can turn around and kill those Longhorns fighting my general. You know, I'm in such a controlled position here that this is the point where we call it, which leaves it as a 20-0 to the Kingdom of Equitaine. So, you know, I think I did okay, you know, correcting, you know, I made the right sort of moves to at least compensate for the giant on the left. But that giant going into my Realm Knights and then bouncing and then panicking off some Wild Horns and then being caught, that really changed that whole flank. And then I made an 11-inch charge into the side of the Gore-Tax, which just meant that I was able to very easily kill him and then flank the Centaurs. But the Centaur BSB going in there and completely fluffing his attacks against the Realm Knights just meant that there wasn't any chance for the Beast Herds to fight their way out of that. I'd killed enough with the on the right flank that I had units then to go into the centre of support what was left. The impact hits with the chariots as well would have made a huge difference as well. Rolling low on there and then re-rolling well with my saves really changed that flank. I think that's not far off of average, to be honest, with my armor save and Aegis. Especially if I manage to get stone skin on them somehow. So, you know, I don't think it was too far wrong, but, you know, certainly all of the shaky dice rolls that could have gone either way did go my way. And that made a huge difference in the game, and it meant that it was too steep a hill for the beasts to climb. So once again, thank you very much to Lucky Sixes for the game. I will link again the battle report below, so you can go and see what he thought of the game as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.